Why everyone wishes they grew up in the 90s, even if they didn't. Have you ever noticed something strange? Recently, my son was watching an old home video of me from the late 1990s. It wasn't anything extraordinary, just ordinary moments. Riding my bike with friends, sitting in the garden with family, walking through a shopping center, laughing over something that today I can't even remember. After a few minutes, he turned to me and said, I wish I'd grown up back then. A few weeks later, my niece said almost exactly the same thing. Then I started noticing thousands of comments online from teenagers and young adults saying the same thing. I was born in the wrong generation. I wish I knew what life was like before smartphones. The 90s looked so much happier. At first, it seems like simple nostalgia. But here's the strange part. Many of these people weren't even alive in the 1990s. So how can someone miss a decade they never experienced? Was life actually better? Or are we simply looking at the past through rose-colored glasses? The answer is much more complicated than you might think. Because this isn't really a story about the 1990s. It's a story about us. The world felt bigger.
Summer's not over yet.
One of the biggest differences between life then and life now wasn't technology. It was how we experienced the world. Back then, information didn't arrive every second. If something exciting happened, you probably heard about it later. Sometimes, much later. There wasn't a constant stream of breaking news, trending topics, or endless notifications competing for your attention. Life unfolded at a slower pace. That meant ordinary moments had room to breathe. You waited for your favorite television program every week. You saved your pocket money for a new CD. You rented a film on a Friday night because that was part of the experience. If your favorite song came on the radio, you stopped whatever you were doing. Moments felt more significant because they weren't available all the time. Today, almost everything is instant. Millions of songs, thousands of films, infinite entertainment, available within seconds. Ironically, the easier something becomes to access, the less special it can begin to feel. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as the paradox of abundance. When we have endless choice, it can become harder to appreciate any single experience. We spend more time searching than enjoying, always wondering if there's something even better just one click away. Convenience has transformed our lives in remarkable ways, but abundance also changes how we value what we have. The internet was a place you visited. It's difficult to explain this to younger generations. The internet existed, but it wasn't your entire world. You sat down at the family computer, you logged on, you chatted with friends, you searched for something, maybe watched a few videos. Then, you logged off. The internet stayed in one room. Life happened everywhere else. Today, the internet doesn't wait for us. It follows us. It's in our pocket from the moment we wake up until the moment we fall asleep. News follows us. Work follows us. Shopping follows us. Arguments follow us. Social media follows us. The line between online and offline has almost disappeared. And while that has brought incredible convenience, it has also changed something deeper. For the first time in history, many of us rarely experience complete mental silence. There is always another notification, another headline, another message, another video, another reason to look down. And over time, that changes the rhythm of everyday life. Boredom used to be normal. This might sound strange, but boredom used to be part of growing up. If you were waiting for a bus, you waited. If you were in the car, you stared out of the window. If your parents were talking, you made up games. You imagined stories. You noticed the world around you. Today, those tiny gaps in life are often filled instantly. A scroll, a notification, a quick video. 5 minutes disappear without us even noticing. Yet psychologists have long suggested that boredom isn't simply empty time. It's often the space where creativity, reflection, and problem-solving begin. When the mind isn't constantly occupied, it starts connecting ideas in new ways. By removing almost every moment of boredom, we may also be removing some of the quiet moments in which our minds naturally wander. Why music felt different. If you ask almost anyone who grew up during the 1990s or the early 2000s what they miss most, many of them won't mention technology. They'll mention the music. And that's interesting, because objectively, we have access to more music today than at any other point in human history. Within seconds, we can listen to almost any song ever recorded. Thousands of artists, millions of albums, entire decades of music, all sitting inside a device that fits into our pocket. So why does it often feel as though music meant more back then? Part of the answer isn't the music itself, it's how we experienced it. There was anticipation. You couldn't instantly stream every song the moment it was released. You heard it on the radio. You waited for it to come on MTV. You borrowed CDs from friends. You saved your money to buy an album. And when you finally got it, you listened to the whole thing. Not just one song, the whole album, again and again. Songs became attached to moments in our lives. Summer holidays, school journeys, first relationships, family road trips. Music wasn't just background noise. It became part of our memories. Today, we don't usually wait. If we don't like the first 20 seconds, we skip, then skip again, and again. We consume more music than ever before, yet many of us spend less time truly listening. Psychologists sometimes call this the paradox of choice. When our options become almost limitless, satisfaction can actually become more difficult. Instead of appreciating what's in front of us, we're always wondering if something better is only one click away. Maybe music hasn't become worse. Maybe our relationship with it has changed. We didn't live our lives for an audience. There's another difference that's much harder to notice. Back then, life wasn't constantly being documented. Family holidays were just family holidays. Birthdays weren't content. Meals weren't photographed. Children weren't growing up in front of cameras. If someone embarrassed themselves, usually, only the people who were there ever knew about it. Today, almost every experience carries another question. Should I post this? It's become so normal that many of us don't even realize we're asking it. We're no longer just living moments. Sometimes, we're curating them, choosing which version of our lives the world gets to see. And there's nothing inherently wrong with sharing memories. Humans have always shared stories. What's different now is the scale. A birthday photograph once lived inside a family album. Today, it can be seen by hundreds, sometimes thousands. That changes us, not overnight, but gradually. Psychologists have long understood that people naturally adjust their behavior when they know they're being observed. This isn't a flaw, it's human nature. But social media has extended that audience far beyond the people sitting in the room. Sometimes, it can feel like we're performing for people who aren't even there. The world felt more present. One of the biggest reasons people describe the 1990s and early 2000s as feeling happier is surprisingly simple.
Hey, race you to the corner!
People were physically together more often. Not because everyone was more sociable, but because there weren't as many alternatives. If you wanted to see your friends, you met them. If you were bored, you knocked on someone's door. Shopping centers weren't just somewhere to buy things, they were places to spend an afternoon. Video rental stores became part of Friday night traditions. Internet cafes became places where people sat together. Even boredom often happened collectively. And perhaps that's something we've quietly lost. Not friendship, but shared presence. Today, it's possible to spend hours talking to people online without ever leaving your bedroom. That's an incredible achievement. For many people, especially those separated by distance, technology has made relationships possible in ways that simply weren't before. But there is still something uniquely human about sitting beside another person, seeing their expression, hearing the pauses between their words, laughing at something completely unexpected. Those moments are difficult to replace through a screen. So, why do teenagers today keep saying, "I wish I'd grown up then"? After all, they never experienced the 1990s. They never waited for dial-up internet. They never rewound VHS tapes. They never carried a portable CD player that skipped every time you walked too fast. So, what exactly are they missing? Perhaps they're not missing the technology. They're responding to something much deeper. Old home videos feel different. People seem less distracted. Families sit together without phones on the table. Friends laugh without someone recording every second. Children disappear outside for hours. Parents aren't checking emails during dinner. Everything appears slower, calmer, more connected. Of course, home videos don't capture everything. They don't show arguments, stress, financial worries, or difficult days. Every generation has its challenges. The 1990s weren't perfect. The early 2000s weren't perfect either. But even after we account for nostalgia, the pace of life really has changed. And perhaps that's what younger generations are sensing. Not a perfect decade, but a different rhythm of living. So, was life actually better in the 1990s and the early 2000s? The honest answer is both yes and no. Psychologists have known for years that nostalgia has a powerful effect on the human mind. When we remember the past, we don't remember every ordinary Tuesday, every stressful exam, every family argument, or every boring afternoon. Our brains naturally hold on to the moments that carried emotion, the laughter, the friendships, the summer evenings that seemed to last forever, the excitement of Christmas morning, the songs that became the soundtrack to our lives. In many ways, memory is less like a recording and more like a story. Each time we remember something, we gently rewrite it, keeping the emotions that mattered most while allowing many of the smaller details to fade away. That's why almost every generation looks back on parts of their childhood with warmth. But here's what's interesting. That doesn't mean the feeling is an illusion. Because while nostalgia certainly softens the edges of the past, the world has genuinely changed. What we gained and what we lost. Today's world is extraordinary. We can speak to someone on the other side of the planet in seconds. We carry more knowledge in our pockets than entire libraries once contained. We can learn almost anything, build businesses from home, reconnect with old friends, find communities we never would have discovered before. For millions of people, technology has opened doors that previous generations could only dream about. These are remarkable achievements, but every innovation changes something. Cars gave us freedom, but they also changed our towns. Television brought entertainment, but it changed family evenings. And smartphones didn't simply change technology, they changed our habits, our expectations, our relationships with time. Today, we're expected to reply quickly. We're expected to stay informed. We're expected to be available, even when we're resting. Sometimes it feels as though we're never completely off duty. And perhaps that's why so many people today are quietly searching for something different. Not because they reject modern life, but because they're searching for balance. Perhaps we don't miss the 1990s. Maybe We don't really miss VHS tapes, or dial-up internet, or waiting 3 days for photographs to be developed. Maybe we miss what those things accidentally created: patience, presence, privacy, moments that weren't interrupted, friendships that existed almost entirely face-to-face, being unreachable without feeling guilty, music that demanded our attention, weekends that felt separate from work, boredom that became imagination, silence that wasn't immediately filled. Maybe that's why so many younger people look at old home videos and feel something they can't quite explain. They aren't wishing for slower technology, they're wishing for a slower pace of life, a life that appears to have had more room to breathe. The final thought. Perhaps every generation believes there was a better time before them. Maybe our grandparents felt exactly the same about the decades they grew up in. Maybe one day, children born today will look back at the 2020s with the very same longing. That's part of being human. We search for meaning in the past because it helps us understand the present. But perhaps this isn't really about the 1990s or the early 2000s. Perhaps it's about something much simpler, a desire to slow down, to give our full attention to the people sitting across from us, to experience moments without immediately reaching for a camera, to allow ourselves to be bored, to be present, to live lives that don't always need an audience. We can't go back. Time doesn't work that way. But maybe we don't have to. Because the things people miss most about that era, community, conversation, curiosity, presence, wonder, those things never disappeared. They're still here, waiting for us. The question isn't whether the 1990s were better. The real question is, what kind of life do we want to create now? Because perhaps the future won't be remembered for the technology we owned, but for the moments we chose to truly live. Thanks for watching.